Has anyone heard of the no backtrack road game? If you have and you're even half tempted to try it, don't. I don't care if you think it's just a dumb internet dare. I don't care if your friends swear it's just creepy, not dangerous. I don't care if you're bored at 1 a.m. and you want a story you can tell later. I'm 28 now. I tried it when I was 19, and I'm only writing this because I still get that tight, sick feeling in my stomach every time I miss an exit at night. I first heard about the no backtrack road game on a forum thread that looked like a joke, one of those posts that starts like a meme and slowly turns into people arguing in the comments about whether it's real. The rules were simple, which is probably why it spread. You start driving after midnight, you pick a back road you don't normally take, and when you see the words, no backtrack, you can't turn around. No reversing, no U-turns, no retracing your route for any reason. If you miss a turn, you keep going. If something blocks the road, you go around it. You don't stop until you reach a lit place with other people. The thread was full of people acting tough. A few claimed they'd done it and nothing happened. A few said they'd seen the sign but didn't go past it, and a handful of comments were just weird, short and angry, like they didn't want anyone talking about it. That should have been my clue. But I was 19. I'd just finished a late shift, and I had that restless energy you get when you're tired, but your brain won't shut off. I was driving home on autopilot, telling myself I wasn't scared of some stupid game, so I tried it. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't bring friends. That was part of the appeal. If nothing happened, it would be a funny private story. If something did happen, I guess I wanted to prove to myself that I could handle it. I got off the highway and took a series of smaller roads that ran parallel to it, the kind of roads that feel normal during the day and slightly wrong at night, long stretches with no streetlights, tree lines that swallow your headlights, houses set far back behind dark lawns. After 10 minutes, I started to feel stupid. It was just driving. Then I saw it. Not a proper sign, not reflective, not official, just big white letters sprayed across a piece of plywood, nailed to two posts at the edge of the road like someone had thrown it up fast. No backtrack. My first thought was that someone was messing around, that someone read the same thread and decided to make a sign. My second thought was, why would anyone bother? I slowed down as I passed it, leaning forward a little, and I remember noticing the nails. There were a lot of them, too many. Like whoever put it up wanted it to stay there. I passed the sign, and the road dipped into a darker stretch where the trees formed a tunnel, and that's when the headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. 1 second, the road behind me was empty. The next, it wasn't. A car had pulled out of somewhere, maybe a driveway, maybe a side road I didn't see. It settled behind me at a distance that felt intentional, not close enough to be aggressive, not far enough to be casual, just there. I told myself it was nothing, that it was late and people drove at night, but deep down I had this unsettling feeling, like someone had been waiting for me to pass that sign. I drove another minute, then 2, and the car stayed the same distance behind me. I tapped my brakes lightly, and its headlights dipped. I sped up a little, and it sped up too. The longer I watched it, the more I started to feel like I was being chased. The road bent, and I saw another piece of plywood on the right side, smaller this time, with a crude arrow painted on it, pointing right. I hadn't read anything about arrows being part of the rules, but my brain latched onto it like it was the route, like this was the game revealing the path. I took the right turn, and the car behind me took it too. The road narrowed and became rougher, my headlights catching potholes and gravel, weeds pushing up at the edges. Then I saw the first hazard, a branch dragged across the road ahead. I slowed down, and in my mirror, the car behind me slowed too. The rule flashed in my mind. If something blocks the road, you go around it. For a second, I thought about stopping and turning around because the whole thing was stupid. Then the hook of it came back. No backtrack. That was the dare. So I drove around the branch, tires crunching onto the shoulder for a moment, and as soon as I cleared it, the headlights behind me crept a little closer. I felt a cold pinch of fear through my ribs. A minute later, I saw reflective orange cones ahead, spaced out like someone had started setting up a road closure, but there was no construction sign, no flashing truck, just cones leading into darkness. Standing near them was a man in a reflective vest holding a flashlight, waving the beam low at the road like he was trying to guide me to slow down without blinding me, and his other hand was raised, palm out. Stop. My stomach dropped because he was standing too far into the lane, like he wanted me to stop close to him. I started to brake, then hesitated, and that's when I noticed something that snapped my fear into focus. The car behind me didn't brake right away. It stayed steady for a second, like it expected me to stop, and when I hesitated instead, it braked late and closed the distance. The man took a step forward. In that moment, my brain finally caught up and screamed what I didn't want to say out loud. This isn't a game. This is a trap. I did the only thing that made sense. I swerved around the cones, cutting onto the left shoulder, gravel spraying. The man jerked back like he hadn't expected me to do that. In my mirror, the car behind me hit the brakes hard, then surged forward, engine revving. It wasn't trying to get around the cones. It was trying to keep me from getting away. My hands were shaking on the wheel, my mouth dry, breath shallow. The tree tunnel ahead got thicker, headlights swallowed by the dark. My phone lit up on the passenger seat. I glanced down just long enough to see it. No service. Of course. Then I came around a bend and saw taillights up ahead. Another car parked across part of the road at an angle, like it had broken down. It was too perfect. The cones, the vest, the late braking behind me, and now a car blocking the way forward. I slowed, heart hammering, and the car behind me got close enough that its headlights filled my cabin and turned my rearview mirror into white glare. I felt trapped between them, boxed in. Then I saw the gap. The broken down car wasn't fully blocking the road. There was a narrow space on the right shoulder where someone could squeeze by if they were desperate. The rule flashed again, go around it, so I cut hard right, tires bouncing over uneven ground. A rock hit the bottom of my car with a horrible metallic sound that made my teeth clench. For a second, I thought I'd get stuck. For a second, I was sure someone would come out and grab my door handle, but I squeezed past, got on the road, and floored it. Behind me, the headlights stayed on the far side of the blocked car, stuck. They didn't follow immediately, and that terrified me more than if they had, because it felt like they were deciding whether it was worth it now. I drove like my life depended on it, taking turns without thinking, not looking at street names, just following the road until the trees thinned, and I saw the glow of real lights ahead. A gas station, bright and ugly and open. I turned in so fast I nearly hopped a curb and parked right in front of the doors. I sat there with both hands locked on the wheel, staring at my own reflection in the glass, waiting for those headlights to appear behind me. They never did. Inside, I tried to act normal. I bought a bottle of water, and my hands shook with adrenaline as I drank. I asked the cashier if he'd seen anyone else come through. He looked at me weirdly, then asked quietly, "You come from the back road?" When I nodded, his face tightened in a way that didn't feel performative. "People mess around out there," he said. "Don't go back that way." I took another drink and forced myself to slow my breathing. "There were trees down across the road," I said, like they'd been placed there. "And then this car came out of nowhere and started tailing me. It wasn't normal. It was trying to run me off." The cashier's eyes flicked toward the windows, like he expected headlights to sweep across the glass. "Yeah," he said, low. "I've heard about that road." "Heard what?" I asked. "Folks go missing," he said. "They take the back road and they don't come out. Sometimes their cars show up a few days later, abandoned, doors open, no people." My throat went dry even with the water in my hand. "The police," he gave a small, tight nod. "They're investigating. That's what they say. But nobody gets found." I stared at him, waiting for a punchline that didn't come. He leaned forward a little. "You're lucky you got away when you did," he said. "Don't take that road back. Go the long way. Main roads only." I drove home on main roads with streetlights and traffic, and I didn't stop shaking until I was in my driveway with every door locked. I still don't know if the no backtrack road game is real in the paranormal way people want it to be. I just know someone out there is using it, And if you're reading this because you've heard about it and you're curious, that's exactly what they're counting on. I travel for work a lot, and when I'm not on a tight schedule, I take the back roads. It's quieter, there's less traffic, and it feels like you're actually seeing the country instead of just cutting through it. This happened last fall. I'd been on the road for hours and I was hungry. I hadn't seen a gas station or a real town in a while when I noticed a small hand-painted sign up ahead. Rest area, food, 1-2 mile. I remember glancing down at my phone out of habit. No pin, no rest stop icon, nothing. Just my route through a stretch of road that, according to the map, had basically nothing on it. I was hungry, tired, and it was late enough that I counted it as a blessing. When the trees opened up, and I saw a gravel lot with a low building and a buzzing neon open sign, I turned in. There were a few cars parked out front and a tow truck, which I found a bit odd since I hadn't seen a service station nearby. The building had faded siding, a porch light that barely lit the door, and windows so grimy I could see my own reflection as I parked. I parked in a spot where I could pull straight out without reversing, just out of habit. Inside, the place was quiet. Not empty, but close. There were only a handful of people. A waitress behind the counter, an older man standing near the register like he was part of the furniture, a guy alone in a booth, and 2 others by the window who stopped talking when I walked in. The waitress smiled and asked if I was passing through. I said yeah and asked if they had burgers. "Of course," she said, starting to shout at someone in the kitchen through the window to put some meat on that grill. I sat where I could see the door and my car through the window. The waitress brought my food fast, burger, fries, and an iced tea. The glass had condensation on it and my throat was parched. Even though I was very hungry, the first bite of the burger tasted wrong. Not rotten or spoiled, just off, like the meat was old and the seasoning was trying to cover it up. The drink was worse. It was sweet, but there was a bitter chemical edge to it. I should have pushed it away. I should have left. Instead, I ate because I was hungry and because I wanted to be done and back on the road. Halfway through, my eyelids started getting heavy. This wasn't, "I've been driving too long," heavy. Heavy like my body had decided it was shutting down, whether I agreed or not. My head felt thick, like someone had stuffed cotton behind my eyes. And when I blinked, I realized I was blinking too slowly. That's when I noticed the 2 people by the window watching me. Not casually. Watching like they were waiting for something to happen. I pushed the plate away and stood up, and the room tilted slightly, not enough to make me fall, but enough to make my stomach drop with cold understanding. There was something in the food. I tossed cash on the table without counting it and walked out, forcing my legs to move normally. The waitress called after me cheerily. Too cheerily. "Thank you, see you soon." It gave me chills. The outside air didn't help. If anything, it made the sleepiness feel deeper, like my body was finally letting go. I got into my car, locked the doors, and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the fog. My head dipped once like I was about to doze off, and it scared me so badly I slapped myself hard across the face. In the corner of my vision, I saw movement. 2 men stepped out of the diner and walked toward the tow truck. I hadn't noticed them inside, or maybe I had, and my brain was already slowing down. They got in, didn't leave, and just sat there with their headlights off, watching, waiting. The grogginess thickened fast. The edges of my vision started to narrow. I knew if I stayed there another minute, I was going to pass out with my doors locked and my keys in the ignition, and I didn't want to find out what happened after that. I popped my glove compartment open and grabbed the only thing I could think of that might jolt me awake, an ammonia inhalant pack. A coworker had given them to me after I told him I almost fallen asleep driving on the road. He told me they'd come in handy. I'd taken the handful of packets that looked like they held a moist tissue inside them and put them in the glove compartment and never thought about them again. I desperately fished for one of those white and green packets in my glove, fighting to stay awake. My hand latched onto one and I tore it open with my mouth and held it under my nose. The burn hit instantly, sharp enough to make my eyes water and my stomach clench. I gagged, coughing, but it snapped something in my brain forward. Not fully normal, not even close, but awake enough to move. The tow truck's headlights flicked on suddenly. That was all the motivation I needed. I put the car in drive and gunned it across the gravel lot, tires spitting dirt. As soon as I hit the road, the tow truck came after me, engines roaring to life like they'd been waiting for that exact moment. The back road turned into a dark tunnel of trees, my headlights barely carving out enough visibility to stay between the lines. The drowsiness kept surging, trying to drag my eyes shut. I kept sniffing those packets and tossing them out the window, adrenaline yanking me back to consciousness. I drove too fast into curves, corrected hard, felt my tires hit loose gravel at the shoulder more than once, and kept the next ammonia pack in one hand, hitting it every time I felt myself fading. The chemical sting mixing with panic until my whole body felt wired and sick, on the edge of throwing up. The tow truck stayed behind me for a while, close enough that its headlights filled my mirrors, but it didn't ram me, didn't try to pass. It just pressured me, like it wanted me to make a mistake, like they wanted me to stop. Then I saw reflective green signage ahead and the faint glow of a highway. The moment I hit the on-ramp, real traffic appeared. Another set of headlights, a semi in the right lane, a couple of cars farther up, and the world suddenly felt a bit safer. The tow truck stopped on the edge of the on-ramp. I saw it in the rearview mirror, backing off and taking a U-turn on the dirt road. Just like that, I was alone again. I drove to the nearest city and pulled into the first motel I saw that had a lit lobby and cars in the lot. I parked under a light, went inside, and got a room without even thinking about price. Once the door was locked behind me, I called the police and tried to explain what happened without sounding insane, giving them the road name I'd been on, the general direction, and what the building looked like. I never drove on that road again. A few months later, I read a local article about abandoned vehicles being discovered off that same rural route. The cars they recovered were empty, like whoever owned them had simply vanished. The article ended the way these stories always end. No suspects, no arrests, ongoing investigation. I don't know what would have happened if I'd passed out in that parking lot. I don't know if it was robbery, trafficking, or something else I don't want to name. I just know I don't stop for places that aren't on the map anymore, and I don't drink anything that tastes even slightly off. My name is Daniel. I'm in my 50s now. I'm sharing this because I still replay it when I'm alone on a long road and the signal drops. I want you to understand how fast a normal day can slide into raw fear when you step into a place that was never meant to feel human. This happened about 20 years ago, around 2000, when I was in my 30s. Back then, I managed operations for a distribution company. I spent my weeks solving problems, tracking delays, taking calls that never stopped. I took a few days off because I felt hollow and tired, and I wanted distance from screens and people. I picked a route that cut through a wide rural country. I drove for the sake of driving. I wanted quiet. I stayed off the highway. The roads got thinner. The land opened up. I watched fence lines run alongside me for miles. My phone didn't help much back then, and I didn't treat it like a lifeline. I used a paper map and road signs. I felt fine. I felt free. I took a turn I shouldn't have taken. The turnoff looked like a normal connector road. No gate, no checkpoint. The asphalt held for a while, then broke into rough patches. The road narrowed. The shoulder fell away. My tires started throwing small stones. I kept going because I expected it to reconnect to a bigger road. I didn't want to turn around and admit I made a mistake. After a few miles, I crested a low rise and saw a town sitting ahead in a shallow dip. A main strip, a gas station canopy, a diner sign, a motel building, a water tower in the distance. The sight of it relaxed me. I felt thirsty and hungry. I wanted a bathroom and a cold drink. I wanted someone to point at a direction and say yes that way. I drove in slow. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. The silence didn't feel restful. It felt pressed down, like the air held it in place. My engine sounded too loud. My tires sounded too loud. Even the small rattle of something in my cup holder sounded sharp. I looked for movement. I didn't see any. I parked by the gas station because that felt safe and familiar. I stepped out and the air hit my face like dry heat. Dust hung low over the ground. I smelled sun-baked metal and stale grit. I walked to the pump and reached for the nozzle. My hand stopped on contact. The pump felt wrong. The casing had no weight. The nozzle sat loose. The hose didn't sag. I lifted the nozzle and the hose lifted with it in one stiff piece. I squeezed the handle. Nothing moved inside. I looked at the display. It wasn't a screen. It was a flat, dark panel. The buttons didn't click. The whole thing was a prop. My chest tightened. I stood there holding a fake nozzle, staring at it like I could force it to become real. I felt my face warm with embarrassment. Then my stomach turned when the embarrassment didn't resolve into a joke. My brain started to protest. This wasn't a cute roadside oddity. This was designed. I walked to the station building. From my car, it looked like glass windows in a store interior. Up close, I saw printed reflections. The door handle didn't turn. I leaned in and tried to see inside. I saw nothing that looked like shelves or a counter. I saw empty darkness and flat surfaces. The store didn't exist behind the front. My heartbeat sped up. I felt it in my neck. I took a slow breath and tried to calm down. I told myself I had found some weird abandoned set. That thought didn't help. It made me picture who might use a fake town and why. I got back in the car and drove along the main strip. The buildings looked normal from the road. The closer I got, the less they held together. A diner sign hung over a shallow front. The windows looked painted. A motel had numbered doors that didn't show any wear around the handles. The curtains sat perfectly still. No cars parked in front of any rooms. No footprints in the dust. My mouth dried out. I swallowed and my throat felt tight. I kept scanning for a person. I kept expecting a door to open, a face to appear, anything that would reset the world. I saw figures near a corner and felt a spike of relief. I slowed, then I felt the relief collapse. They didn't move because they couldn't. They were life-size cutouts, bolted in place. Flat bodies posed like people waiting, talking, walking. The faces looked faded in the sun. The edges looked sharp. From a distance, they passed as real. From 10 feet away, they looked like a warning that my eyes could be tricked. I sat in my car with both hands on the wheel and listened. No music drifted from anywhere. No radio, no TV hum, no voices, no dogs. The wind moved a little and still didn't bring any normal sound with it. I heard my engine idle. I heard the faint tick of heat inside the dashboard. I heard my own breathing. My skin prickled along my arms. I felt exposed. The town had long, straight sight lines. The buildings framed the street like a corridor. I saw corners and flat roofs and dark windows. I started imagining someone standing behind one of those windows, watching me through a gap. I told myself to leave. I drove toward what looked like the way I came in. The road didn't feel the same from inside the town. I missed a turn. I turned again. I came back to the gas station. I tried another route and looped back again. The same facades returned from new angles, like the town kept reintroducing itself. My fear climbed a notch. I didn't feel panic yet. I felt trapped in a slow way, the kind of fear that creeps up because it keeps finding fresh proof. I stared at the mirror more often. I checked the empty streets for any change. Then I saw an olive green car roll into view at the far end of the main strip. It moved steady. It didn't wander. It didn't hesitate. It drove like it belonged there. It aimed straight toward me. My hands tightened on the wheel. I felt my pulse in my fingertips. My brain threw up a simple thought. I shouldn't be here, and someone noticed. I turned hard and accelerated. Gravel snapped under my tires. Dust rose behind me. I watched the green car in the mirror. It followed. It didn't rush me. It didn't fall back. It held a clean distance like the driver didn't need to prove anything. My fear climbed again. I drove faster. The road shook the car as the surface broke down. The steering felt loose in my hands. My teeth pressed together. I kept hoping I'd hit a clear exit and the town would drop behind me. I kept seeing the same turns and the same blank buildings. I kept seeing the green car appear again behind me after every bend. I started sweating. The air in the car felt thick. I breathed through my mouth and tasted dust. I found an exit road that looked right and committed to it. A barrier sat across it. I hit the brakes hard. The tires skidded. The car jolted and dipped. My seatbelt cut across my chest. My heart slammed against my ribs. I stopped a few feet short of the barrier and stared at it. I heard the green car close in behind me. I didn't think anymore. I acted. I threw the car into park, got out, and ran. My feet hit dirt and scrub. My lungs burned fast. I heard doors open behind me. I heard footsteps. They sounded close. They sounded confident. I didn't look back. I focused on getting away from the road. I ran into a thin line of trees and low brush. The ground dipped and rose under my shoes. My vision narrowed. I tasted metal in my mouth. My thoughts got loud and stupid. I pictured hands on my shoulders. I pictured the back of a vehicle. I pictured that empty town behind me, sitting under the sun like it waited for this. My foot caught on a root or a rock and my ankle rolled. Pain hit like a flash. My leg buckled. I hit the ground hard and scraped my palms. I tried to stand and my ankle gave out again. I gasped and sucked dust into my throat. I felt heat behind my eyes. I crawled, then dragged myself behind a tree that wasn't thick enough to hide me. I pressed my back against it and tried to keep quiet. My breathing came out in harsh bursts. I forced it down. I listened. Footsteps moved through the brush. Branches snapped. Gravel shifted. The sounds moved straight toward me. The people behind me didn't wander. They didn't search wide. They came like they already knew where I went. My fear reached its peak. I felt my mind go flat. I felt a cold acceptance settle in. I stopped thinking about escape and started thinking about what I could do to keep things from getting worse. I hated myself for that thought, and I couldn't stop it. My body decided I was caught before anyone touched me. The footsteps stopped near my tree. I stared at the ground because I couldn't handle looking up. I waited for violence. I waited for the moment my life split into a before and after. I felt tears burn and didn't let them fall. Then I heard calm voices. The voices didn't carry excitement. They carried routine. I heard a question aimed at me, and the tone didn't match my fear at all. I looked up. I saw guards, uniforms, radios, gear that looked used, faces that looked tired. They stood in a loose half circle, not rushing in, not grabbing me. One of them looked down at my ankle, then back at my face. Another looked past me, scanning the area like this was a safety habit, not a hunt. They asked why I ran. That question hit me harder than the chase. My brain struggled to answer because my brain still clung to the story it had built. I tried to speak and my voice came out thin. They told me I had entered restricted property and needed to leave. They explained the site was part of a top-secret project. They said warning signs posted at the turnoff were supposed to stop people from coming in. I told them I didn't see any signs. They spoke among themselves for a moment. I caught enough to understand what they believed. Kids from a nearby town had likely pulled the signs out again. They said it like someone describing a repeating problem. Their frustration didn't aim at me. It aimed at the missing signs. One of them offered a hand. Another helped me stand. My ankle screamed when I put weight on it. They supported me anyway. They moved me back toward my car with steady patience. I felt embarrassment flood in as the fear drained out. I felt it in my face. I felt it in my shoulders. I kept thinking about how I had sprinted from people doing their job. I kept thinking about how I had turned a bad turn into a full collapse. I couldn't meet their eyes for long. They escorted me to the correct exit and told me which way to go. They waited until my car rolled clear. They didn't lecture me. They didn't threaten me. They acted like they wanted me gone and safe, and they wanted the problem to end. I drove out slow, gripping the wheel hard because my hands still shook. The road widened, the surface improved. The fake town fell behind a bend and vanished from view. My phone found a weak signal again. My mouth still tasted dust. My ankle throbbed with every press of the pedal. I reached a real town before dark. I parked at a real gas station. I pumped real fuel and watched the numbers climb. The normal sounds hit me like noise after silence. People talking near the door, a truck idling, a radio inside. I sat in my car for a long time and stared at the steering wheel until my breathing returned to normal. I tried to treat it as a mistake. I tried to laugh at myself. I tried to file it away. 2 weeks later, a plain envelope arrived at my home address. No return address, no note, one printed photograph. It showed my car parked at the fake gas station in that fake town. The photo came from above and far back, like someone used a long lens from a place I never noticed. I could see myself outside the car, standing at the pump, holding the fake nozzle. I could see my head turned toward the station facade, as if I had just realized the truth. A handwritten note at the bottom of the picture said, "A souvenir." On the back of the picture was another statement, "Don't come here again." I sat at my kitchen table with that photo and felt my stomach drop. The guards had been polite. They had helped me. They had treated me like a confused civilian who got in too far. That photo told me something else. Someone watched me the whole time. Someone recorded me before the green car ever rolled into view. Someone kept a clean record of my face and my car and my position in a place that was built to look empty. I never received another envelope. I never got a call. Nobody followed up. I still think about it. I still think about the cutout standing in the street. I still think about the fake pump under my hand. I still think about the barrier across the exit road and how quickly my mind turned that into an ending. I still see that photograph in my head because it showed me the part I didn't feel at the time. I wasn't alone in that town, even when it looked empty. Walking into a strange town that's designed like a set with human cutouts would be creepy to say the least, but being chased right after would have made it absolutely terrifying.